check. You don't hear a bunch of. All right, forget that. Welcome everyone. This is State Building Code Council for work group on economic impact for September 2nd, 2025. We have a few people on here, so we'll try to take roll.
Todd Baber there.
Here.
Michelle Anderson.
Here.
Angela Haupt. Dan Young.
Here.
Ben O'Mara.
Here.
And Katie Sheehan.
And I see Angela online now as well.
Angela.
Okay. And then
So we do have a quorum.
thank you, Annette. I see Patrick online also. I was going to ask you, am I clear and do you hear background noise?
You're
I'll
good.
fix it if you do. Okay, thank you. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We will try not to take 3 hours today. We're gonna, but we wanted to keep a pace going here and touch base every week, so we keep on this and pivot as needed. First of all, let's go through the agenda. Item 2, review and approve the agenda. Could we hear a motion to approve, please?
Motion to approve. This is Dan.
Second, John.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Agenda's approved. We do have minutes posted, right, Dustin?
Correct.
So if we're here, a motion to approve the minutes from August 25th.
So moved. This is Dan.
Chow, I'll second it.
Okay, as we scroll through it, any proposed edits? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Minutes are approved. Okay, let's jump right back in to where we were. And first of all, we need to remember where we were. We have the matrix posted still, but Dustin, I assume you have kind of the working spreadsheet, right?
Yes, I do. Let me open that up here. So for the most part, we went through the proposals at last meeting that were moved here or moved towards CR 102, and we were trying to take looks at them for more economic impact analysis. At the last meeting, the last stuff, hold on, I'm not looking at the correct pages here.
As you're bringing that up, first of all, congratulations, Angela. Good job. Angela
Yes.
got through the IRC. So Patrick, also thank you for all your work on that. That's an amazing task. Ben, I
Yes.
know you're in it too. So
at the last meeting, we talked about, I guess I'm not sharing my screen. That would be helpful. All right, this is the spreadsheet we've been working with. We said to bring the IRC and the UPC if they were ready. IRC just barely slid across 30 minutes ago, and UPC is looking to have another meeting, I believe, tomorrow in the afternoon to get across the finish line there. And there hasn't been a whole lot more development beyond the discussions we had last week on these proposals. And the other thing that I didn't get to was a questionnaire to send out for additional impact input. Keeping the meetings flowing just didn't allow me to do that. And so I don't have a questionnaire available for us today.
okay, let's talk about that in a little bit here. We can park that for a second. The updates I have are we are going to have an IBC meeting tomorrow, even though we're out of group cycle. We have a couple legislative mandate tasks that we're going to introduce, even though we don't have to technically have them done by December 1st. I was going to raise the question, kind of modeled after Ben, how you're approaching, if you think that's advisable on to just raise a couple of the ones that we talked about and flagged. Again, that's not necessarily the work of the tag, but I think there's subject matter experts that could give us some advice. So just heads up. So I'm going to do that tomorrow morning, I think at 9. Is a special IBC meeting. Any other updates from the other tags, Angela? Obviously, we want to strategize how we can help you best now that you've gotten through the list.
Yeah, I don't think we had a lot that had big economic impact.
There are none that had real controversial impact statements.
And you feel that was there some discussion in ones that probably would be flagged by this group?
I'd have to get back into the spreadsheet. I had one that I had flagged to bring to this group, which was an appendix on visitability, but that proposal didn't get forwarded to CR 102. And beyond that particular one, I didn't have any specifically that stood out for bringing to this group. A lot of the proposals were really just reorganizing and placing existing amendments into the new organization of the IRC.
Okay. And just as a kind of top down, I thought maybe we could talk, especially about the economic impact first, make sure we're kind of going through each one of the codes and flagging. And then I think we need to get in a more strategic discussion about how we want to approach the small business aspect of it. Does that sound accurate and aligned with our needs?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm not trying not to jump around, but since IRC was fresh, Ben, since the yours are fresh too, is there anything you want to add from last time?
I guess one thing we did do, since again we didn't have quorum last week, so that's why we're having another meeting tomorrow where we'll be able to close out the UPC proposal review, and then also hopefully review any kind of more important or controversial cost-wise proposals with the tag. Is we did email this document out to the tag members just so they are aware. I know some of them were not totally sure where to find kind of this cost matrix with all the proposals linked to it. So I think that was helpful for tag members.
Okay, thank you. And then let the record show that Katie joins. I think we have all the tags represented now.
Oh, it's all the members of the group. So yeah.
Yep.
Except for Roger, but that's kind of a nuanced thing.
Oh, for this, yeah, the
Single
multiplex.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ben. So we're talking about economic impact first here, high level. Dan, any updates from fire code?
No, we just have one item to go over today. I think Dustin was going to fix a link that we had bad so we could look at it.
Think I have that fixed. That was man,
Hey, after
it
this
was
weekend, all I know is I'm glad I'm here.
let me check that. So 009 was broken and I'm pretty sure I got that one taken care of. Yes, that is active on the page now. So this is posted with today's spreadsheet. IFC section 909.20.5.4, and this one was proposed by Dave Kokot. And as we're going through here, he says that there's no economic impact. Having seen a number of these types of systems, there is normally a fan system for each shaft. This language corrects what appears to be an omission for the assumed intent of the code. It should not have an economic impact. The general intent of the code and smoke control design is that each shaft should have its own fan system. Having designed several of these, it is not even considered that a single fan system should be used for more than one shaft. This code change would clarify this for designers that are not familiar with the life safety impact of not being able to control each shaft. And so I think he's just claiming this is a clarification statement here. And let me pop into the code and see if I can determine. I think this is a new section for the model code. I'm almost there. Yeah, so looking at the model code, this would be adding a new section in 909.20.5. And 909.20.5 is ventilating equipment. And so I tend to agree that this doesn't bring cost, but I yield. Dan, what is your thoughts on that one?
I concur.
Okay.
Yeah, like you said, I think it's just a clarification, so I think we're fine.
Okay.
And I think that was the only one that we had left, wasn't it, Dustin?
That was the only one with a broken link, and I believe we
Yeah.
went through the rest of the document. In our
Okay.
last.
Okay. Okay, so again, we're going through economic impact first. We'll talk about small business next, but let's go through all the codes. Knowing let's see, we don't have IRC. I think we're getting close, right?
So if
On group one.
we're very close on group one. So we've got the if I just list out the codes by WAC number, we've got the commercial energy code, the residential energy code, and that's under 5111C and then 5111R. Then we get to the building code and existing building code in under 5150, residential code under 5151, mechanical code, fuel gas code, NFPA 54 and NFPA 58 under 5152. And then the fire code under 5154A, the plumbing code under, I guess it'd be the WUI code, which we don't have anything working on at the moment, under 5155, and then the UPC under 5156. And I think that we're pretty much there. The one thing that we haven't discussed yet at this meeting are the energy codes, but beyond what we talked about as far as the contract moving forward.
Okay. Do we want to talk about those now?
I think it would be a good idea. The contract is moving. We had a pre-bid meeting on it. This contract is taking a lot longer than I had anticipated at the outset, and even more now as we're getting through there. So this whole process has been getting started at the end of, excuse me, 2024 to get to where we are today on the contract process for economic analysis on the energy codes. The main limiting factor before we could really get going on that was the availability of proposals recommended towards CR 102 for contractors to be able to start bidding on that. So once we got through the process that Chell led and we got all those recommended towards CR 102, the next dam in the contracting process broke loose and we started moving forward again. And so now the contract is moving forward. with the proposals that have been recommended towards CR 102. And this is a short timeline for contractors to come in and do this work. And just last week, we had a pre-bid conference where some contractors attended with the contracting staff of DES and, introduced the task, some of the milestones we're hoping to get there. And then they were able to ask some questions and get some responses from SBCC staff. The probably prime thing to keep in mind is that the final result of the contract is not anticipated till the end of December. And there is some preliminary stuff requested there, but it's not going to be in time for our CR 102 filing October 1. And so there's a gap in what we have expected from the contract results versus what we need to have for our CR 102 process in the timeline that we're on right now.
Okay. Shell, are you on still? You lost him, didn't? Oh, there you are.
Oh,
He's
yeah,
here.
I've been here the whole time.
Do you have any comments?
Well, I know contracts take a long time, and I appreciate staff working through what needs to happen in order to get the stuff going. Let me know how I can help, if I can help.
I guess as we get through this, I'm just not sure, how to gather the information that we're expecting from the contract folks there. Historically, SBCC has relied on the proposal documents to be the prime source for most of the information across most of the codes. The energy codes are a little bit different, and I guess a question for you would be, could you comment on the veracity of most of the economic statements in the energy code stuff? I mean, is most of that agreed upon and kind of thought to be at least in the ballpark of accurate, and not necessarily completely misleading?
Yeah, I mean, not completely misleading, I would say is accurate. Is as accurate as a minimum bar. The tag discussed sometimes, some people would say, I think this, could be better, or made a comment on it. And that's all part of the public record in the tag. But ultimately, the tag voted for the package of items that is going into this to the council, to the MVPE committee, and ultimately out to the public. So um, nobody said this is so wrong that it shouldn't go forward. And the tag ultimately voted for it. So it's there were 166 proposals in the commercial and 50 in the residential. So blanket statements are difficult to make, but not completely misleading, as you said, is I think true of all of them. And then there were certain comments made against certain ones of them. I'd have to rewatch all of it in order to see what that was. But ultimately, the tag voted for it. And that means that there was confidence in language, confidence in cost, confidence in all the elements that went into the proposal.
Okay.
And I think, I've said this a couple of times on record, if we take a design approach to this, and that's how I think about it, we're bringing all these up to an acceptable level. We're not going to bring everything up to a perfect level for sure, but I think we're assessing across and normalizing across all of our codes. Are we starting to converge on acceptable levels? And if not on certain proposals and certain rules, what attention do we need to give those to mitigate it? Or are certain things raised to the point that we can't mitigate it and we need to take other action as the full council, and perhaps not move certain recommendations forward? So if others would like a different approach, I think that's how we should be talking about these and continuously building these up as we get to our deadlines. Patrick, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Just getting to spend the whole day with Dustin and Angela and Dan Young today. The IRC tag. Yeah, and I mean, I think the information that comes in from proposals is helpful as you're just sort of considering, in the tag process. But sometimes changes are made and then the economic analysis isn't necessarily updated to reflect that. And then in terms of the SBC's responsibility for the cost benefit analysis and the impact statements, those are for the entirety of the rulemaking. So it's the cumulative effect of all of the changes. So even if you can't necessarily rely just on what proponents provide for their specific proposal, because the costs and the benefits are going to change as they interact with each other. It's going to affect you're not just, a lot of the proposals will look at, the energy efficiency changes in just that one proposal, but it might not be considering other changes you're making to insulation or some other or appliances that would change that. And so that's why typically for the energy code, you relied on a contractor, because that's complex analysis to look at the whole code, but also for the other codes, looking at them cumulatively as well for the cost benefit analysis.
I think that's helpful. Thank you, Patrick. Go ahead, Katie.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you so much. I've got kind of a comment and then a question. It's like I do wish that we had this cost benefit analysis, like, sooner rather than later, but it's also, to Patrick's point, like it's a full analysis. And I mean, getting it out by the end of December gives the legislature an opportunity to look at it and go, is this, we're doing our best. We're able to go in deep, look at the tags, look at the MVPE, like do all of that analysis. And then it feels like, we're kind of bringing everything, we're trying to finish everything, and it sounds like we're going to, which I think is the best we can do. So I guess my question then is, Chell, like you said, there's basically, with the whole energy code, it sounds like 200 proposals or over 200, including the residential and commercial.
Correct.
Of those, like, about how many is there a cost benefit or a cost increase or an effect? Do we know?
I would have to take a educated guess at that.
Yeah, educated guess. Sure.
I guess that there's, among all 200, there's probably 30 or 20 that are the ones where there's a noticeable and approachable cost. And what I mean by that is, for the commercial code, we're talking about 16 building classifications, which could be built from 1,000 to 100,000 square feet in size or 1,000,000 square feet in size. And so there's so many building types that you could do a cost analysis on 40 building types and still be, inaccurate on another building type that, wasn't costed. What I believe happened last time was the PNL looked at, I think, the 8 commercial energy code proposals that were seen to be the noticeable cost proposals, and then did a cost benefit analysis on those. I think that's what they did, is they kind of, to your point, they picked the ones that, I mean, most of us could look at these code proposals and say, this one probably doesn't have, much of a cost or much of an appreciable cost. And then find also the ones that probably will have some first cost and some payback as well. And I think that is a good approach, because there are so many proposals and a lot of them are clerical, and some people could argue about, some of the proposals, whether there's a cost or not. But I think ultimately there's a couple dozen at the most that are going to drive most of the first cost and long-term cost and benefit of the code. So yeah, and then to your other point, this is a volunteer code. Public supplies code petitions, and the public, i.e. the tag members and the council members, which are volunteers, review them. This is not California where they have dozens and dozens of staff working on this. This is the Washington process that the legislature set up, so we are doing what we can within that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Thanks, Chill. I just feel like, you know, it's, I understand the purpose of the cost benefit analysis, but it's like, all of these pieces are working together. So, you know, you've estimated about 30, you know, proposals having a cost to them. And we will hear about that in public comment. And so that's happening until what, November? So, you know, these are the kinds of things that, you know, it's all kind of happening at once. Anyway, I suppose that what I'm trying to say is, Dustin, I don't feel like December is a bad thing. I mean, or even realistic that it could be coming out any sooner than it is. So thanks, everyone.
And you're on mute, Dustin. But I also wanted to ask you if you felt there were any schedule implications to the schedule that you just laid out for the cost benefit.
So, yeah, having the contract run its full course by our filing deadline of October 1 was a non-starter for one. Because, you know, we're just crossing the threshold of getting it all the, you know, T's crossed and I's dotted in the preliminary contracting endeavors. And so when we are lining that out, we're asking for some preliminary deliverables as well. But that's still, you know, a ways out for these contractors. They haven't even really started. We've received no bids on these just yet. And so as far as, you know, final contract stuff coming in at the end of December or mid-December, whatever it might be, and after our, you know, final adoption date isn't necessarily the end all say all for the final adoption date, because those contracts, to my knowledge, at least in 2021, came to full fruition after our final adoption. And then staff drafted CR 103s, got everything in and filed before the start of the legislative session, and we moved on from there. The issue that I'm trying to highlight isn't so much about the final product of this contract, but more the, you know, where a preliminary cost benefit analysis is required at CR 102 filing. I think that we could take the proposals and be okay with that, and then take the results of our contract work and write our final cost benefit analysis after our final adoption. That's not the issue. The issue really, I think, lies in the small business economic impact statements, where we're tasked with evaluating how our code change proposals impact small businesses. And, you know, if this is a cumulative task, then a small business economic impact statement on the entire code would be warranted. But that's not the way it's really been done in the past. We've been taking proposal by proposal and trying to craft a small business economic impact statement by proposal. And this is across all the codes. And trying to improve that process necessitates more time in the engagement side of that. And we're at a point where it's going to be tough to get that engagement out, get responses back, and then also draft all of the reports that go along with it in response to those engagement responses. And so, you know, it would be nice if the contract that we had was addressing the small business impact as well. But the contract's not designed for that. So the small business economic impact statement was always going to be in the hands of staff from the outset of the contract generation. And I just am in a place where I'm trying to improve the transparency and reliability of the council to the public. So if there's been one outcry that I've heard across the 2024 cycle is that, it'd be nice if the schedule that was recently put out was the last schedule and we can actually plan our years based on the stuff that was put out. But since 2024, end of that legislative session, we've just been experiencing delays and difficulties getting everything across the finish line in the most timely manner. I've been trying to look towards the next code cycle to see where things could be maybe handled a little bit better, but it's hard to even look at the next code cycle when we're essentially not really super duper close to being done with the 2024 code cycle, even though the time line would say something different. And so,
Hey, Dustin,
yes.
sorry to interrupt you. I was thinking, I think we can transition to the small business. Can we maybe wrap up on the economic impact first? And then, okay. So what I think we can do, and the goal here, this cycle, is that we are going to talk about what we have done, and I want us to come into the September 25th or the next council meeting when we have that on the 19th or the 25th, 6th, I'm sorry, and be able to tell the council what we have done. And so we've gone through the screening of the codes. We know we still have the IRC and the MVP left, but let's transition and say, do we have our first pass? We've had X number of public meetings on this. We've asked for public input on this both in these meetings, and as we move into submitting or filing on October 1st for the CR 102s, that those we've achieved some level of preliminary economic impact. And then I think that's our goal of if we have to have one more meeting before our next council meeting saying, have we achieved that on the economic impact, knowing there's documentation that goes along with that. Does anyone on the council or public have concern about the economic impact process to date? Okay. We'll keep that question open. Now we've already transitioned into the small business. So let's just quickly high level remind everyone what the difference is between the APA cost benefit economic impact we just talked about and the small business. I'm sorry,
So I'll try to paraphrase all that down into a couple sentences. The cost benefit analysis seems to be a pretty straightforward, that we are looking at the benefits brought by any changes that we're bringing to the code versus any costs that are also brought by that change, and saying that the benefit outweighs the cost. And I think that we have fairly decent statements on file for that particular analysis. When it comes to the small business economic impact, the concern is that small businesses will have harder time complying with rules that larger businesses may already be geared up and staffed, provisioned, etc., to comply with. And so when we are looking at small business economic impact, is the impact to a 10% smallest business disproportionate? No, I'm sorry, that's incorrect numbering, but is a small business as compared to the 10% largest businesses, is that impact for them to comply with a rule disproportionate? And if it is, how did we try to mitigate that impact? And what were those mitigation efforts?
and our challenge always is and has been and will be, we are different. Every single rule, every single amendment, change to a whack, can be considered a rule. Versus kind of logically, how do we think about our codes and sections and full codes and so forth, right? So we do have to talk about that just in terms of the actual, again, logic behind how we're approaching this. And then we can talk about specifically what we can and, should have to do to meet the requirements of the statute. And just as a reminder, thank you for going high level again on that, because I think it's always good to repeat ourselves. This is a different part of RCW. This is falls under a different code. This is under
It's the Regulatory Fairness Act.
right. Thank you. Rather than the APA. Okay. Any questions on that? Saying things we already know. Okay. Now is it right, Dustin? We kind of get in, let the council members talk a little bit about this distinction between this very specific rules, the big sections, and how we want to seek public input if we feel we need mitigation on something. Dustin, you had brought up, a more typical agency form last time in terms of surveys. I think, some of the offline discussion is that really the most appropriate in its current form, or could it even realistically be adapted appropriately? And what is that? What are alternatives?
So alternatives to using the form that was in its infancy the last time I showed it on screen would be to rely on the proposals and write something as status quo in the past, which is not really, it's not in alignment with what I've been trying to do with the rulemaking cycle for 2024, which was to improve the process for economic impact, both on the cost benefit and the small business economic impact statement. But when we're talking about the time required to send out questionnaires, get good feedback via that mechanism, there needs to be more time. And so I'm at a point where even if I had that sheet ready today, if we were to poll out to all the appropriate people and get that back, we're in the first week of September. Pulling up a calendar just so I can glance at it. So we've got essentially 3 full weeks of September left before October 1 looms. And we're talking to about 2 weeks for a robust response back to any sort of survey we get. And then that leaves a week to the 26th to try to draft something and have it as a digestible document for the council at that point. And even if we push out to the 30th for a council meeting, any edits that need to happen as a result of the council meeting have to happen the day of, after the council meeting, potentially up until noon the day after. Like 12 noon is our filing deadline for October 1 to meet this timeline that we've got set for us.
And so, Dustin, before we get too specific about the surveys, as we've talked a little bit about it, I think I'd like to ask the general question to both council members and the public on the value of such survey, or what other alternatives that we can collect the data. We could do both, but to mandate that we are going to put out this level of survey, are we really getting the quality information back in the public process that we're tasked with doing? So let's talk high level first. Put that question out there.
So is the question, Todd, I guess I don't understand the question.
I raised the, sorry to interrupt you, Shel. I raised the question offline after the last meeting of let's talk about the value. Say we could achieve that type of survey. Is that really how we want to collect the best information from the stakeholders? That might be one option, but to put that out there, the council to put that out there as a mandatory requirement for this small business economic impact, is that really going to get us the best data, even if it was achievable?
Yes, my immediate suggestion would be what else was considered as options before the survey or alongside the survey. How was the survey decided as the best option? Is that what other agencies do, or is that what else could we be doing?
I guess it's part like as far as what other agencies are specifically doing, I haven't been party to see any surveys that have gone out on the rulemaking. So when I look for examples on how to do this, I go to the website that's the agency charged with, providing guidance on this. This is the ORIA website, ORIA. And the rulemakings where their guidance documents are being applied are more single subject natured, and not as varied in topic as each individual code having 60 proposals going through it. So for example, the one that I liked in the format of and read through was about apple maggots and how there's certain restricted areas that you're not allowed to take apples into or out of to reduce the pest. But that was the whole topic of the rulemaking. So they were able to focus in on one small group of stakeholders and do some questionnaires, potentially do some invites to some talking sessions where you can hear them. And then they showed some surveys that I do believe came back, and they didn't show the actual survey, but they showed some of the information that they got, and that was included in their small business economic impact statements, which for essentially 2 or 3 lines of rule change in that particular one, they had a 20-page report. And I attended a training on cost benefit analysis and regulatory fairness the other week. And I think I mentioned it last week, but the other agencies that are doing this, they employ economists. So for example, Ecology and L&I have a staff of 5 or 6 economists that's all they do is cost benefit analysis and small business economic impact statements for their agency's rulemaking. And we have what I would consider a more robust amount of rules that we're trying to do with not as much resource to bring to bear on that topic. And so hearing from the past that SBCC can do better on this aspect of our rulemaking, it seems to be one of the places we can improve our process the most as far as improving transparency, but I am struggling to have staff time and just general code cycle time to fit this in a way that works with all the other workload.
Okay, thank you. Dwayne, please.
Yeah, I've got a question for which I don't have a good answer, but or concern that I don't have a good answer for. But that's that one of political bias, and if our questionnaires are going out, through an organization that's traditionally been opposed to advances in the energy code, are we going to get a balanced and reliable set of survey results back? I don't know how to get around that, but that would be my big concern there with the survey system.
Well, to be fair, I didn't intend to only and I don't know if you're alluding to one specific organization that's been opposed to energy code advancements, but to be fair about it, I wasn't intending to send this survey via just one avenue for delivery. I was hoping that interested parties would be tuned into our website already signed up for our Gov delivery. If we were, had more time, we could put notices out in the papers and things like that. But, it's something that's, if there's more interest, via a opposition party, we still may get a skewed survey result, and it's hard to get past that perspective bias in this process.
Right. And costs are especially tricky for everybody. If you've ever seen the difference between a bid price for something and a change order price for that same thing, on it could be a double the original price. And both can come from legitimate looking cost estimates. So very, very tricky. I've been professionally at different times assigned to prove that something is unaffordable and crazy, or alternatively to prove the opposite. And I've been able to go and do a good job of either one of those. So it's on the same thing, everybody's going to have a different opinion and different backup, and how you have that Solomon-like wisdom to figure out which ones are the more believable. I've been in your position and I don't envy you.
Thank you,
And I
Dwayne.
think that's where some of the survey results, if we can cast a wide net, we can get varied results as well. But I think the challenge right now is more of a one of timing than, are we only speaking to one party?
Thank you, Dwayne. Katie, did you put your hand down?
Yeah, I guess I will say to your question, is the survey the best way? And after hearing what Dustin is saying, we don't have 5 economists working for us, and I don't know if, when you're using the word transparency, I mean, we're only able to do the work that we have resources for. And, if they wanted us to be able to do a high level analysis, they would give us 5 economists in theory, right? I mean, and knowing that that is not, I know that we all are working with, at 100%. So I guess, given what we have, the survey seems like a good way to get the information that we're looking for, since we can't go out and get it ourselves. But unless we're going to ask for public comment. But so I guess my question is, when do we have to, maybe you already said, what is the date that we need to get this in by? Is this for October 1st?
The drafts would need to be complete by, I would say, no later than September 22nd, to give some time for people to review what we have going on. So that's drafts on the code changes for CR 102, which we're already working on. We're trying to put together the forms for the cost benefit analysis and the small business economic impact statements, hopefully so that we can start filling in that information. But right now, we can't start in earnest because we've only really got the proposals to rely on for that information.
Mm-hmm.
The survey, you're saying that would need to go out for a couple weeks, come back, and then be parsed probably for, the information, so it can be put in an intelligent format. And then you're saying that that would need to be part of the CR 102?
To be in strict compliance with the law, yes. So along with the CR 102 form and WAC change document, we are obligated to provide a preliminary cost benefit analysis and a final small business economic impact statement. Why there's not a preliminary small business economic impact statement is a little bit beyond me, because it seems like with public comment and potential changes, that could change as well by the time we do a final adoption.
And so you're suggesting it would be very difficult to get the survey results back in time in order to do that statement
Well, that, and
and all the other work.
yes, correct.
Yes, I never forget that there's a lot of other stuff going on. Yeah, I guess I was wondering if there were other options to get that small business information. So if the survey is a real challenge, are there other methods that
I
are
mean, we can
reasonable?
invite folks to attend our meetings, and opine on the impacts there. But I think that is not very structured, and we would then struggle to, parse that information out into the report appropriately.
Okay. Go ahead, Patrick.
Yeah, I would say representing stakeholders on this, there's very specific requirements for quantifiable metrics you have to report on the impact statements. And I think a survey is extremely helpful in getting that quantitative data from not just folks in our industry, but like last week, we identified some industries that may not typically pay attention to the building code process that would be affected by a change. So identifying any industry that could be affected by the rulemaking, identifying, the stakeholders, the places to reach out for those industries, and then providing the survey in a reasonable time frame and getting that data. I think that would be the best way to get those metrics that you need. I met with Araya in the past year and talked to them a little bit, and then I connected them up with Dustin as well, and they brought up an idea of also doing and helping potentially coordinate with the State Building Code Council to do like listening sessions in conjunction with those surveys, and I thought that could be a potential way to kind of expound on the quantifiable metrics and get more qualitative data from those that want to participate. But I think a survey is definitely the best way to go. The problem is that, at this route, I've known, you've known that this needed to be done for quite some time. I've been, ringing this bell for a year, and now you're just trying to put one and one together and schedule things out when you could have been doing this a year ago and avoided a lot of these problems. You would have known how much time you need for everything and planned it out, and then we wouldn't be at this juncture. Because right now, I'm really tempted to say that even if you had a survey ready today and you could like send it out, it's going to be really hard for me to try to corral a response from the residential construction side on that. I can't imagine for other industries that may be affected all of a sudden, being like, hey, here's this big change. Please respond, look over this and get back to us within 2 weeks. I've had a lot more. As a stakeholder, we get contacted by other agencies. We don't even have to watch them vigilantly. They'll contact us, say, we've identified you as a stakeholder. Here's what we're doing. And we'll get months to look at things much, much minor compared to the entirety of the code changes. So thank you.
Yep. I appreciate it, Patrick. I'll also push back and saying I'm asking the question of the value of a survey. Yes, that you can get quantitative results, but whether we start now or we started a year ago, before the code process had actually progressed to where it is, we know the intensity of the schedule. We know that we have a lot to do in the year and a half where we actually pursue this process. I'm asking on the actual statistically valid responses we would get. And I'm not sure, and this is what my question is to both the council members who ultimately have to take the votes and represent their seats. Are you going to get information that informs your decisions and makes your decision more defensible? And that's the thing I'm questioning right now, that we've gotten to a point where we're talking about an effort to put out a survey, or we also need to recognize our entire process is public process. That's part of our charge. Every meeting is public and everything is out there in hours and hours of work. So how do we best capture that entire brain trust that represents a year and a half of work? And I'm not sure a survey is the only and the best route, but I'm raising the question.
I guess if the gov delivery was going to be a major route for the survey to go out, a listening session could also go through the same route, and that might get more immediate responses. I can say from having delivered surveys before that, response rate is usually very, very low. And so we've offered, gift cards and other things for responses because frankly, and especially for small businesses, got a lot on their mind that don't have to do with big picture policy decisions. I also represent a lot of small businesses, a lot of architects. In fact, most architects across country are small businesses, sole proprietors, et cetera, and very small businesses. And, by and large, they will take some training courses on the new code and comply with the new code, regardless of what the small business impact statement says. And to a large extent, regardless of what the big code changes are. There's training courses that are out there. We have those in the commercial sector. We have those in the residential sector. We have a lot of training coming out of WSU and other places. A lot of private practitioners actually do residential energy code trainings, and architects take those and get the next batch of buildings going. So the small businesses that I represent, which is a lot of them, the results would probably not impact them. So it probably wouldn't impact my ultimate vote on the codes.
Okay. Well, next steps. Do we come in high level now? We're looking at a code here. We probably could remove that. How do we want to make sure, like on the cost benefit analysis, that we've screened through our codes and are giving. Now, I started on the IBC. As I was doing the cost benefit, I was also giving consideration. I'll take one last look on the small business economic impact. But I think that flagging them is the most important thing we can do at this point, even though we're coming into a final report at the time of CR 102. Is that correct, Dustin?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. I think ultimately, though, flagging these and making sure we can get input from the public, even if it is during the CR 102 process, because most importantly, it should affect decisions before final adoption. Go ahead, Patrick.
Are you suggesting not doing the small business economic impact statement? And
No, we're talking about strategy to best achieve that.
okay, but it has to be filed with the CR 102, and public comment comes in after the CR 102 has been filed.
Yep, I understand. And that's where I'm discussing comprehensively. Most importantly, we take that information and we are trying to inform a vote before December 1st, right, of adoption. Any other amendment that's going to come in, both of the public hearing, a written testimony, ultimately we need to set the council up for success coming into that last vote. So I'm talking about that first, then we'll get into very specific, what can we achieve to best inform that you know, within the next 3 weeks, within the next almost 3 months, right?
Question, is it not in any way possible to hire a professional cost estimator that's experienced in these things?
Not via contract that we have going right now. If we like, that is something I would like to bring to bear on all the codes in the future, but there's expenditure authority limits put on us by the legislature, and then overall money issues as well that would prevent us from potentially paying that out into the future as a regularly occurring process.
Good, Shell.
So if staff came up with a staff quality small business impact statement for the CR 102, and then any survey results and any CR 102 public comments were informed with the vote, as you know, will happen in November. Is that reasonable? If staff generates the small business impact statement for the CR 102, and then any survey results are, you know, included with CR 102 comments.
Yeah.
I think that's the way it's been done in past code cycles, is staff, you know, crafts the small business economic impact statements, and that goes out with the CR 102, and then other costs come in during the CR 102 public comment process.
I'm not sure that that is gonna get us across the risky line on that one. You know, if we've got survey out, you know, it'd be my reading of the RFA would be, you know, to involve the small businesses as much as possible, to bring in the information and include that in the small business economic impact statement. You know, if it was written in a way that we could do a preliminary cost or small business economic impact statement and file that with CR 102, I think that that would be the best way to move forward, would be to staff craft it, put it out, get comment, and put it forth a final one later. But unfortunately, the statute requires the final one up front. And so if we've got loose threads hanging out there that would inform, I think that that wouldn't serve. It may accomplish the goal, but it wouldn't serve us as far as the strict compliance with the statute.
I guess we're not precluded from doing additional economic impact, which could be a survey.
I would say that's correct.
Ultimately, we're trying to get to a vote, the best informed vote we can achieve. And if that requires amendments, or that requires ultimately removing certain proposals, then that would be a certain level of acceptance, right? Okay. Well, I want to keep us moving forward here. We're talking still high level about this. Any other comments about our strategy here? Okay. So moving the data collection side off to the side, what are next steps on making sure that we've gone through and are comfortable within our codes? Do we achieve, where do we feel we are in each one of the codes, and what do we need to do on the question of small business economic impact? in the same vein as cost benefit analysis. Anyone speak to specific codes? I've gone, as I said, I've gone through most of the IBC and IUBC that I've flagged. I might want to look at a couple more with just this lens on.
So I think for preliminary cost benefit analysis, we're in good shape with concurrence on the content of the proposal documents. So I really think the small, preliminary cost benefit analysis, I don't have a lot of heartache over drafting that. The small business economic impact statement, I can get that going, but to write it in a way that shows deliberation in the avenues that is spelled out by the statute, I think that probably some additional additional inputs needed from somewhere. If it's via survey, via discussions at this group with invites to affected stakeholders to come and talk about proposals that are of interest to them that might be impactful. I would say that the additional information is for sure needed in order to write a small business economic impact statement that is minimum satisfactory.
Okay. Is it the will of this group to do it, that kind of potential session within a public meeting online? Assuming we have flagged the amendments in question.
So you're proposing a listening session going over proposals that are flagged because they may have impact to small businesses.
That's one additional option, is we have a hearing like on, it can be on any proposal, but we definitely should publish a spreadsheet with those that are flagged, just as in the last cycle, we took the 8 top ones and gave them to a consultant for assistance.
Because and just to be clear, we're talking about the small impact statement that is sort of outlined in RCW 1985-040. Okay, yeah.
One good thing about doing a listening session type thing with you all is that if you have, unlike with a survey, if you have questions or you want to challenge something that somebody says, they're right there and it can be dealt with on the spur. Whereas if it's just paper surveys coming in, then you can't argue and you can't get clarification.
I agree, Dwayne. I think that's what I'm proposing, is that we would have a hearing like session, clearly flag the handful that are identified as concerns, of course, have the opportunity for others, but formally go through, have them posted and go through a quick structured discussion within the intent of what the survey would be asking, right?
Yes.
And if we're prepared, I think we can pull off a pretty structured session.
That sounds reasonable to me.
Yep, I agree. And I guess, Todd, Dustin, would it be possible for written testimony to be submitted for those as well?
Yes.
Absolutely. It's great. It's a good idea. In fact, if we treat it more like that hearing, then we can take written testimony up to, and even technically we could take it a little bit past, but we don't have a formal cutoff, so that we can make sure we could capture it properly before submittal.
Just thinking of schedule and stuff. IRC came across the finish line with proposals today. UPC is slated to do so tomorrow. Brandon, I see you online. Are you available to unmute for a moment and ask a question? You may have stepped away, but my question was geared towards quorum of the MVP tag.
I am able to answer.
Okay, did you get good responses from folks that you are anticipating being able to finish the UPC tomorrow?
Yes, I have 8 confirmed saying that they will be there for quorum, and plus Ben confirmed, so we should have enough to be able to move these final 2 proposals and move forward with the review of the impact on the IMC as well.
Okay. So that being said, so I think we should be wrapped with the all day long meetings come next week. We should have some more staff time available to help digest documents. Like what I'm needing is, meetings to quiet down quite a bit to get to this draft work and get it and have a hope of getting it done. So a listening session on all of the codes, I think in one day is probably not going to be super doable because it's just a large topic unless we had it whittled down to like 10 or 15 proposals. But I still think that even then a listening session on one day might be a little bit far to push, but maybe 2 days worth of listening sessions next week could be done. Calling for some written comments as well. And I just wanted to ask this group, what does availability look like next week if we are trying to do listening sessions on more than one day?
I'm available Wednesday morning and afternoon, Wednesday before 11 and after 1.
Okay.
Tuesday before 11 and after 1. Tuesday after 1. Possibly some other time.
And as far as, necessarily needing quorum at these meetings, I don't think we necessarily need the full group. This will be kind of more like a hearing than a meeting where we're anticipating taking action.
I agree. They could be recorded and
some transcripts prepared and stuff like that. I'm just thinking 2 days next week, and I'm not sure like would a 4-hour session cover half the codes and everything we want, or I'm just trying to anticipate the time need for running through all 10 codes. Knowing that some of them are going to be low in impact, like for example, the WUI code will not have a lot of discussion on it. But I'd say the big proponents there are going to be the energy code, the building code, the fire code, and the residential code. I think are going to be the ones that have potential more turnout for people concerned with the economics there. And if we could maybe bifurcate those out of the same meeting, like maybe have IRC and IBC, IRC, and IFC in one meeting, and then energy code, and then try to tack in the other codes as appropriate and time allows.
And again, it's on us to put structure behind this. These aren't meant to be open hearings that we're just giving unlimited testimony. We're asking very specific questions, and we need to work through, that structured form and ask questions and get feedback.
Okay.
So is the purpose here then to, from this, be able to write the report?
Yes, and I would say, I mean, impossible task to try to bring drafts of those reports to make final edits to it, or as a result of these hearings. I think that I'd be looking to have these reports ready at earliest on the 20th or something like that. I'm looking at the wrong calendar. I'm sorry. But yeah, the 20th or thereabouts on the 19th is probably as soon as I could potentially get these ready. But that's not bringing consideration of digesting input at these hearings that we're talking about having. So, but yeah, I think, you know, a Tuesday, Wednesday, or in the middle of the week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday days, what works best. You know, have 2 4-hour sessions and try to address stuff. And if there's a need, because of extra turnout, maybe we can have one additional session at a later date.
Okay. All right, we're forming a plan. Any objection? It's all in the details how we structure this. So go ahead, Patrick.
I'm not understanding what the opposition to doing a survey is. At least, like, speaking on the residential side, we represent the lion's share of stakeholders from the construction industry. And you're asking, how do we get feedback from the stakeholders? And I've asked for a survey, and I feel like a survey is very helpful in getting you the data that you need to compare. And then and you're gonna have a listening session, which is fine if you want to have it with that. But then also providing written comments seems like that's just it feels like, why not just do a survey?
I guess probably my feeling on the survey is the time and commitment towards trying to stay on October 1 if we're trying to get back very structured results. You yourself mentioned that we need more time than what we have to put a survey out and get good feedback. And so if we're asking for written comments, you know, I guess if we put a survey out and put a due date on it that's, you know, short, what kind of feedback could we hope to get back with that type of deadline? You know, I think we're going to struggle with the contract with the energy code because there's such a short time frame on it. So if we're just asking for interested parties to do a survey, I'm sure that people are going to want to do it, but are they going to be able to do it in the way that we're going to get back, not necessarily verifiable data, but data that is going to work, you know, towards writing these reports? Like, you know, so I'm not opposed to a survey, just that the timings, if we're staying to October 1, the time is not there for an appropriate survey response is the feeling I've heard from folks interested in taking the survey. And, you know, how I feel about, you know, where I'm at with trying to keep the draft work happening, the meetings running on a cadence that they're running on, and to develop a new process for the SBCC that hasn't been done before.
I think the bottom line, Patrick, is, you know, the SBCC is not currently set up to facilitate a large survey that's statistically valid. I mean, I've conducted these before in both academic and private settings. You know, that's my question today to everyone is, one, could this be actually a quality input, and does it inform the decision? And I think that's what we have to decide here is what are we structured to do and what best informs the decision of the council to conduct the public process. Now, please reach out to your members. And that was my challenge last session. All seats, ultimately, we have a responsibility to bring in that feedback and represent, you know, represent those stakeholders. So okay. Anything else? I don't want to keep going today. I think the tasks in front of us, one, get this structured, but two, we have to make sure that we have somehow flagged the amendments, the proposals. So that's a task on all of us to do offline and to and bring back and publish those ideally. Can we achieve that in the next week?
I will do my best to get where we're at. I think we have
Yep.
preliminary flags working. And I think that we can definitely make headway for sure.
Okay. And I guess the ask is for each of the TAG chairs to kind of go through your codes and work with Dustin to help flag those. Dustin, are you able to send out that spreadsheet, maybe?
Yeah,
Where we are?
I can get it posted and send it out.
Okay. Let's do it that way.
Okay.
Okay. Any other ideas? Okay. If not, can we go back to our agenda, Dustin?
Yeah.
I think that was it, right?
I believe so.
Like I said, I'll facilitate IBC tomorrow morning, do the best I can to conclude this and bring back and I'm going to try to go through with that tag a couple of the questions I have on some of the amendments. So I'll report those back to Dustin. Okay, number 5, any other business?
No, sir.
Okay. With that, thank you, everyone. We are adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Thanks.
everyone.
Time.